Our next speaker, Margaret Bankole. She is a practicing barrister for 30 years, and she's written a book. I hope some of you might want to purchase her book. I think it's called here's the book, My Story. But then is it really my story? I think it's probably our story. Let's hear from Margaret.
I also have 5 minutes. The book, My Story, but then is it really my story? It's a loving mother's story of rescue and restoration from a shattered expectation over her son. I want to be a voice to hurting mothers. The book is inspirational and it's timely. It's a mother's heart when she was in pain and in trauma. My inspiration for writing the book is that I didn't let my son go. I showed him unconditional love, and he turned his life around, and our family healed. Why am I launching it now? Because I believe it's timely with what's going on right now. It's only 2% of our young people that are doing this, but it's a significant 2%. The rest of our children are going around. They're going to university, they're going to college, they're getting their grades, and they're getting good careers. But it's another time to speak about that. But this book speaks to so many levels. It speaks on the public health level. It speaks corporately, and I'll mention that again later on. It speaks legally, and it speaks about government response to knife crime. It speaks about our community response. It speaks not just about a mother's pain, a father's pain, siblings' pain, uncles and aunties and cousins. We're all affected by what's going on. And we need a response that will enable us to heal emotionally, psychologically, mentally and spiritually. In this book, I share some of the solutions, and maybe we'll come up with some more solutions. I wanted to share the story of the world so that the world can see that even in the UK, we have a national problem. It affects all stratas of society. As you've heard, I'm a barrister. I've been a barrister for 30 years, but I'll share some of the pain that I went through. It also shows that society's views on the current murders, stabbings, shootings, it needs to change. It's not just a black problem. It's our problem, all of our problem, and we need a solution. Sorry, just time down. The back of my book says, it tells of the love of a mother for a tenacious son. He took everything within her and squandered it. But then there was nothing left for her husband, other children, or even herself. Her family wondered what had happened. In the midst of this, she discovered a God who would not let her go, and who carried her through the worst bit of it. She's discovered a love for this son that was buried deep within her, which caused her not to let him go. And in so doing this demonstration of unconditional love, it caused her to turn her son around and strengthen the family and brought the prodigal son back. And herein lies a life lesson for parents, for professionals, for pastors and young people. It doesn't matter how far your children fall. They can come back. You don't have to lose your mind in the process. When my son was at the height of what was going on with him, I said to him, you need to think. He said, Mum, I can't think. And that was a problem with our children. When they can't think, they're morally bankrupt. They can do anything because they don't think about the consequences. And he didn't think about the consequences. And so when I was going through all of this pain, I was saying, God, why am I going through all of this pain? And he said, it's so that you can understand the trauma and the pain that these young boys and girls are going through. And so when I understood that, I determined that I was going to love my son enough to come back home. And before he came back home, he said, Mom, not all the children in here are bad. Then this guy did. Because what happened is my son went to prison, and we tried our best to keep him out of prison. We prayed, we fasted, we got other people to pray for us, stand in the gap. We got legal representation. But he went to court, and the recorder just took over the prosecution because my son had been stabbed several times, and the recorder didn't want them to return a sympathy verdict. So he got convicted, and it crushed me. It crushed the family. But even though it crushed me, I was determined I wasn't going to lose my son. So we showed him love, and he came back and he said, "Mom, the streets sold me a lie. Somebody told me the streets was home, but it's not home. So we need our children to come back." So in the book, I thought of some solutions that we could use to bring them back. But I also want to, as Simon Lee has said, there is an over-representation of our sons in the prisons. The Prison Reform Trust says it's 49%. It says there are 21,937 from a minority ethnic group. That compares to about 1 in 10 of the general population. Even David Lamour refers to the criminal justice system and the bias and the discrimination. But there's too much pain. And because of that, the solutions I've thought about and I've mentioned in the book is unconditional love. If we show our sons and our daughters unconditional love, no matter what they do to us, we still love them, they will come back. And if we give them a job, they need a job. They need something to do with their hands. The devil makes work for idle hands. They need work. And they have an entrepreneurial spirit. They're business-minded. They need our support and our guidance. And this is where the corporate world can come in. They could harness their creativity. They could give them resources to create their own businesses so that they can work for themselves. And they need a safe house. They need a safe house where they can be loved. They can show the love that they need. And also, finally, they need trauma counselling because they've seen a lot and they've done a lot. So I'll just leave on this note that I'm a core member of Black Sox. I'm Margaret Bankole. I'm a barrister, I'm a pastor, I'm a counsellor, I'm an author, but most importantly, I'm a mother. Thank you.
Margaret, that was so powerful. I mean, many people in this room will be parents, and I remember hearing Diane speak that as parents, particularly with black boys, that we worry every single day. We worry when they go to school, we're not comfortable until they come back, and it's something that we have to live with, but we need to look at some of the tools that we can do as parents, as a community, but also what we should demand from the state. But your message rings loud and clear, and I'm sure that the Reverend will have something to say about that too. I'm now going to ask, I was going to say our Black Mother of Parliament, but that